thank you for being here. So I want to start making trousers, different types of trousers, different design, different shapes, different sizes for myself. So in today's video, I'm gonna start with the classic tailored trousers block pattern. Just like I made the fitted dress block pattern and by this block pattern, I want to create like a foundation pattern for my trouser. So whenever I have any design in mind, which is pretty soon, probably my next video, I'll be able to like go straight to tweaking the foundation trousers pattern, block pattern, to get my desired style or desired design. I want to thank my returning subscribers. Thank you for the support, thank you for the encouragement, and the new subscribers, because yeah, if you're watching this video, definitely subscribe. Don't leave without subscribing. So I'm thanking you too, because like I'm thanking in advance for subscribing and also like my video and share my video. These are the measurements that are required to draft the classic tailored trousers block. So this is just the usual one here. For the crotch depth, you just sit down on a flat surface. You measure from your waist, high waist, low waist, whichever you prefer, down to the flat surface, and that is your crotch depth. So for the foot entry, I just wrapped my tape round, pull it out as if I'm pulling out my trouser, and wear it in as if I'm wearing my trouser. So the measurement I got was 13 inches. My knee circumference, I sat down and wrapped the tape around my nail, and I got 17.5 inch. For the formula to get your nail depth, you can either place your tape on your waist down to your nail to get your nail depth, or you can divide your trousers length, that's your pant length, and add 2 inches to it. Why for the crotch width is the hip circumference, that's a quarter of the hip circumference plus quarter of the hip circumference divided by 4. So my quarter of the hip circumference is 10/1/4. My quarter hip circumference divided by 4 is 3/4, which is 13/1/4 inches. The back crotch width, whatever you get for the front crotch width, plus 1 inch. So but I'm going to be using 14/3/4 inches because I have a big bum, so I'm going to be adding ½ inch to this to make it 3/4. That's 14/3/4 inches. I wrote a line on the top and at the side of my pattern paper just to create structure on my pattern paper. The first step was to mark out the length of my trousers, my pattern length, which is 39 inches, and it happens to be the pattern was 39 inches, so there's no need marking that out. So I'm using the total length of the pattern paper. So the first line is my waist, that is the top line. So I forgot to include my waist to hip depth, which is 8 inches. So I marked that out. I marked my waist to hip depth 8 inches. After marking that, I squared that out. I also marked my crotch depth. So my crotch depth is 12/1/4 inches. I also squared that out. The next step was to mark out quarter of my hip measurement. Also marked out my crotch width, which we have already done the calculation and the formula. So it's to make the curve from the hip to the crotch point, from the hip point to the crotch point, to get the crotch curve.
I drew a line from the hip point up. I labeled my pattern paper outseam where the hip curve will be and inseam where the crotch is, before marking out the quarter of my waist measurement, placing my tape on the inseam down to the outseam. So you can, if you follow, you can use dotted lines here, because this is not the this is not going to be the main line. I'm going to include that allowance to form the real hip curve. On the waist out seam, I marked up 1/2 inch. This is just to raise the side of the pants. So I connected that to the waist inseam, just like so, and I also adjusted the line to make it a little bit slanted. The next step was to mark out the midpoint of my waist to create the dart. After marking out the points, I went down 4 inches, and at the side I went on both sides 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. That's, I'm creating a 1 inch that allowance. So it's time to add my dart allowance at the side of the hip and create the hip curve. I also added a 1/4 inch. Usually I'm supposed to take out a 1/4 inch, but I added for ease. I just needed that ease because I've made trousers before and it was a little bit tight there, so I just added that. You can take that out if you don't have, like, if you have a very slim waist, you can take out 1/4 inch. If you have, you can just add that. I extended the hip line down to my trousers length. The next step is to mark the midpoint of the crotch line and square that down to the trousers length. After this, I marked my nail length, the waist to the nail. You can, like I said earlier, you can measure that, placing your waist to your tape on your waist down to your nail, or you can get the half measurement of your trousers, just like so. You just get the half measurement, and once you mark that out, you add 2 inches to it. So the next step after marking up my knee length is to mark 1/4 of my nail circumference on both sides, 1/4 on one side, 1/4 on the other side of the nail point, just to get my nail circumference. I also did the same thing for the foot entry. I marked a quarter of my foot entry circumference on both sides. That's 1/4 on one side and 1/4 on one side. Next step is to connect the foot to the nail, just like so, and connect the nail to the crotch and to the hip. Okay, this is all for the front trousers pattern. So I'm going to use this front pattern to create the back by tracing the front pattern. So you just cut out the pattern and trace the back, and trace it to create the back pattern. I also marked out my points as the knee point, the hip point, the crotch point, in order to trigger to create the back pattern, the back trousers pattern. I already left 1 inch for the dart allowance, so I'm going to mark my darts on my back pattern by marking the midpoint of the waist, and also mark the midpoint of the half waist, just like that. Mark the midpoint of the half waist on both sides. On the first line, this the out seam, I went down 5 inches to create my dart line. Then I went on both sides, 1/4 inch to make half inches. That's one dart is half inch, the other dart also half inch to make it 1 inch allowance. For the other side, I went down 4 inches, square that out, and mark 1/4 inch on both sides also. So the next step is to extend my crotch. I went out 1.5 inches because I have a full bum, so I went out 1.5. The standard is 1 inch, so I extended the line. I went down 1/4 inch just to ease the curve, the crotch curve for the back, because I don't want it to be straight, it has to be curvy. So I just went down 1/4 inch just to create the back crotch curve. Like I said, for my bum, my thighs are full, I have full thighs, so I extended the line by 1/4 inch and connected that to the crotch, and the other side, as the out seam, I connected it to the hip. The next step is to mark the midpoint of the waist to the hip line. This is going to be my slash line to get the back height of the pant, but I'm going to just rule that out, slash and spread. This method works for me. Rather than going up 1 inch on the top of the pants, I prefer to slash it and spread it 1 inch. It works well, and it's balanced when I sew. So the next step, I opened the slash line just like so, and I'm going to be slashing this by 1.5 inches. The standard is 1 inch. So I placed a pattern paper underneath. So what I did was to place the bottom part of the trouser straight, that from the hip or from the midpoint down straight, while for the up I spread the top. So what I mean is that you only spread the top and not the bottom of the pants. So I spread the top by 1.5 inches and placed a tape, so I'll be able to cut that out. So this is all for the classic tailor trousers block. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video and don't forget to subscribe. Bye bye.